This podcast is recorded on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people.
British Columbia, I've seen your mountains high, seen your pretty rainbows and your blue crystal skies, watched your winding rivers as they flow around the bend. To me you're not a stranger, you'll always be a friend.
Coming to you from the West Coast, this is Blue Coast. Today is September 19th, 2019, and this is episode 156. Blue Coast is BC Politics Podcast. Tell us what you think of the show by leaving us a review or get at us on social media. Most importantly, help us build the show by throwing us a couple bucks a month at patreon.com/bloodcoast. Thank you to our new and longtime patrons for your support. Editing services are provided by Cortado Productions. I'm Scott Belundaboom.
And I'm Matthew Naylor.
On today's show, the unfolding scandal that is taking over the federal election, as well as a roundup of everything else that's happened in the past week.
Yeah, I agreed to do this doubleheader before this story broke, so I'm so glad that I managed to squeeze that into my schedule. Also on the show, a rundown of the report of the provincial auditor that says that BC's legislature needs tighter expense rules.
Blood Coast is in partnership with BC Today, British Columbia's daily newsletter dedicated exclusively to BC politics. Sign up for a free trial to have unique coverage of the BC legislature delivered to your inbox every morning. Listeners to Blood Coast enter the offer code CITIZEN, all lowercase, for access to a special rate. For your free 2-week trial, the newsletter, go to britishcolumbiatoday.ca. That, I think, about sums it up as we move into segment one. No clever title this week because it just doesn't feel right.
No.
With all that's happening here. So to get right into it, the big news that broke yesterday from Time magazine, of all places.
Yeah, and which has managed to make its way all around the world.
Is that there were several photos that have surfaced of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in various forms of blackface.
Yeah, so these are not recent photos. I mean, not that that really excuses very much, but these photos are from at least the original one that broke in Time magazine is from around the period when Justin Trudeau was a teacher at West Point Grey Academy, and he was dressing up for the Arabian Nights Gala. No one else at the gala was dressed up in brownface, but Justin decided that it was, in his apology, he says, "Sometimes I get way too into costumes," which, honestly, I kind of believe.
I think we've already seen that one with the India trip.
Yeah.
Which has also shed a new light on the India trip stuff, which did not expect that would resurface. But
yeah, it's one of those things where I do kind of make a distinction between malicious racism and stupid racism. And this is definitely stupid racism. It's still racist and harmful, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we should be very clear upfront about this. This isn't, just controversial or offensive. It's racist.
Yeah, it's racist and harmful to people. I mean, it's quite a bit better that it happened in the spring of 2001 than the fall of 2001, because in the fall of 2001, it would have been a hate crime. But
it's bad either way.
Yeah.
I don't think it really actually makes it any better.
No, nothing makes this better. It's just that it makes it not worse. There was also a photo of him, I think, on a roller coaster. I couldn't really, wearing like a afro wig and in full blackface.
So that one came out later that night.
Hooray!
Which, for the timeline here, so this made sense. This story broke. Trudeau finally addressed the press on his plane, and afterwards wasn't entirely sure how many times he'd be in blackface. When asked by the press, he said that there was one other time he knew of, which already that's a bad qualifier when we're talking about this. So shortly afterwards, it came out, there's another one from when he was a teenager in a talent show singing Deo.
I mean, I'm just really thankful that for my grade 7 production of You Can't Take It With You, in which I was playing a character which in the original text was the black butler Donald, my school decided to not have race-reflective makeup on it, and just decided to... I mean, I know that the character was still black because there were a bunch of references to Porgy and Bess, but I was just me. And I think that was what was appropriate at the Arabian Nights Gala, Justin. I'm so furious. I'm just, like, this is just shy of being disqualifying for me. And had the other parties not diverged so much from my philosophical and policy goals, I would find it very difficult. And indeed, am going to have a kind of gross pit in my stomach when I do cast my ballot for my Liberal candidate. But, ugh, it's just defeating.
I think that, sums up the, I think, general mood of national disgust. But then, overnight or early this morning, there was another instance that had broke. Global News had gotten a copy of a video that also showed Trudeau in blackface, so bringing the total up to 3. And a little late earlier today, La Presse reported that the Liberals are expecting more to come out.
Great. I haven't seen the third video. I've only seen the roller coaster and the Arabian Nights Gala. I really wasn't impressed with the slight implication that the Liberal spokesperson was hinting at during their presser when they were suggesting that maybe he was painted blue. Because
was that the Liberals actually suggested?
It was sort of an intimation. I think the idea was that, like,
is that genie
he
thing?
was painted as the genie, but I don't think that was the case, and I think they should be ashamed of themselves for even intimating it.
Well, if that was true, that would have just been the statement from the start. I was a
blue.
Yeah, the fact that they had to insinuate that means it's bullshit.
Yeah. So let's give a rundown of the fantastic responses of the other party leaders, starting with, of course, Andrew Scheer, who was, shocked and disappointed? Was that? Yeah.
I can't quite recall if he called for the Prime Minister's resignation, but he's done it so many times now I've lost count. But yeah, the shot suddenly really concerned about racism in Canada.
Yeah, I mean...
Which is, being a little disconcerting, just how quickly people are jumping on this who don't care any other time.
Yeah. Jagmeet Singh, whose opinion I actually care about the most of all the party leaders on this, seeing as how he has a particular history of experiencing this type of racism firsthand.
He put out a really, I think, heartfelt and video, not really addressing Trudeau directly, but more towards all the Canadians who felt this sort of racism personally, and telling them that they're cared for, people are there to support them. And I thought it was actually quite a powerful statement he put out.
Well, that is something that he has managed to do well. I think it was actually one of the things that he was very talented at during his leadership campaign, is managing to take hurt feelings and instances where people are feeling like particular type of racial animus and deflect and actually channel that into a positive form. Elizabeth May, moving on to the Green Party, the federal leader, Elizabeth May, responded.
She responded with a statement condemning it, calling it, I believe, inappropriate, about what you'd expect from a political leader in this situation.
A rational, normal response, as opposed to the provincial leader of the Green Party, who...
went with, let he who is without sin cast the first stone as his first take on this, which he tweeted out last night.
Which makes me think there's a picture out there of Andrew Weaver in blackface, but... He said...
He definitely was not reading the room right on that one.
Yeah, he said, we've all done stupid things in high school. And I want to, remind Andrew Weaver that he wasn't in high school. He was in a high school.
He was a teacher.
He was a teacher.
Which, it would have been inappropriate as a student. It is way worse when a teacher does it.
Yeah. So the response has been a round of condemnations of this behavior from... basically every segment of Canadian society, in particular communities of color.
Less so from Quebec. A bunch of Quebec politicians came out today with, is it really racist, though? I mean, it's probably not appropriate. The condemnation hasn't been as universal as I would like.
No.
Nor from Bernier, too, who...
Oh, yeah. I assume that Maxime Bernier just endorsed Justin Trudeau at that point.
Well, he put out probably the most carefully worded statement of anyone here, trying to not offend his base while also denouncing it.
There is such a generational divide on this one, because I think that a lot of boomers just don't see this as a problem because they were raised in an era where minstrelsy was still pretty widely practiced.
I think the BBC were doing minstrel shows up into the mid-70s or something.
Yeah, and Michael Geller, paragon of the BC political pundit corps, apparently was attending a party that 5 women apparently showed up independently dressed as Aunt Jemima. Racist? Absolutely not. Oh, wait.
That was his quote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
Yeah. But they don't, it's like the boomer blinder syndrome. It's just like, what? My actions ruined the world? And then there's the next generation down, Gen X, which is like, oh, whoops. Which I think largely sums up the Prime Minister's response to this whole thing. And not that millennials are particularly a non-racist group of people, but I think the condemnation has been wider and more unadulterated in its negative reaction to Justin Trudeau, which now we can move into what is the effect of this on the election. Now that we've covered the is it bad, which I think is what most media should have been doing, rather than how will this affect the election as the first thing. Now we can move into it. Will it affect the election, Scott?
Probably. Well, yes. How much so, I think, is still up in the air. And it's undoubtedly going to affect the election. I think definitely more so now than my initial thoughts on it when there was just one photo. Now that it's established itself as kind of a repeated pattern of behavior and there's hints that there might be more dropping, I think this is going to have a lot more staying power. Whether it has 4 weeks of staying power and the topic of conversation will change between now and October, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it has the staying power that I think some people might think it does, in part because we're pretty inoculated from racism because we are bombarded with it all the time.
There's also that it's hard to keep a media story going without new stuff.
Yeah.
So if we keep getting more of these pictures coming out, then yeah, we'll definitely continue on. But it's hard for the media to generate much conversation about something when nothing has happened in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's like a function of we're all like living in a systemically racist society, and so I don't know how much people are going to be able to keep up their initial thoughts and outrage over the thing. 2, I don't think the media is going to be able to do that either. 3, it is going to be a race through the opposition files, like the Oppo files, to find any candidate and basically besmirch anyone who has ever done anything close to this. And that, of course, has started already with information dropping about a Conservative candidate attending a Christmas party, basically, where a Dutch character, Zwarte Piet, was, like, there were like 8 of them.
Yeah. So this was Conservative candidate from out in Langley, Tamara Jansen, and it's alleged that she participated on it, although it's not. There's been some back and forth on whether or not she actually put on the blackface or not. But yeah, there's in the Dutch Christmas tradition, you don't have Santa Claus, you have Sinterklaas, who's similar, comes up from Spain to distribute candy and whatnot, and in the tradition has a Moorish helper, and Black Peter, Zwarte Piet in Dutch. And as the traditional celebrations happen in the Netherlands, a lot of people dress up as Zwarte Piet, including with the blackface on. And it appears that tradition has made its way to Canada in some Dutch communities here, which is not great.
We are a true cultural mosaic.
So this is controversial over in Europe, too, that they're starting to slowly phase it out, though not nearly enough. And actually, the Dutch Prime Minister has also done blackface as Zwarte Piet. But there has not been nearly the pushback there, so you can tell they're not quite as far along on that one. So that came out today. I think landed with a bit of a thud just because everyone's attention was on the Prime Minister.
Yeah. This is going to be a problem primarily in terms of turnout, in my opinion. The big change in the 2015 election was that Justin Trudeau was able to activate a large swath of people who were not voters in the prior elections. Many of those people were first-time voters. who were eligible for the first time to vote, who had come of age between the 2011 and 2015 elections. Millennials will be the largest voting bloc in Canada this time around. Whether they outvote the boomers, who are the second largest voting population, is going to be an open question, because this is going to, in my opinion, as a professional pundit, going to turn off millennials way more than it does an older generation.
Yeah, so some of the conversation yesterday was, will this help Andrew Scheer? And in that sense, probably not, because you're going to see a lot of defections from people who would have voted Liberal now going to the Conservatives. But
yeah, that's not a reaction that someone who is offended by this particular behavior is going to have naturally, I think.
But the Conservative vote has a pretty solid turnout regardless of the goings-on in the election. So even if the same number of people show up to vote Conservative, if the Liberal turnout gets depressed by this, it will help the Conservatives.
So why are we only hearing about this now, and why in time?
Yeah, so those are kind of the two other big questions that emerged from this. This was in a yearbook. This should not have been hard to find. It's kind of like the classic thing that people start their Oppo research on, is checking the yearbooks.
Yeah, it's
and
what
pass them, where people worked and all of that stuff. And both of those check boxes would have found this one. They looked there. So that's odd, especially now that the two other things have popped up within a day. So
someone was sitting on these.
Yeah. Actually, it did turn out that the video that Global put out, they had, I believe, gotten that earlier in the week and were working to verify.
Oh. All right. So it was going to be a bad time all around this week for JT.
Yeah. So but there's a question here. Is Justin Trudeau became a member of Parliament in 2008, I think?
Yeah, he ran in Papineau in 2008.
In 2008.
Which, of course, leads to the fantastic Beaverton headline, Liberals fail to vet Montreal candidate.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he has been in public life for some time. These photos have been out there during that entire time, and were a good deal more recent in 2008 than they are in 2019.
Yeah, so there was 2008. That didn't pop up in the election there, either in the vetting or any of the opposition.
Especially since he was running against a black candidate in that riding, Vivienne Barbeau, who was the Bloc MP at the time.
Right. So it's surprising it didn't come up then. Then there was the leadership race. Well, there's an intervening election, the leadership race he won, the last election. If this had come out during that one, I mean, by no means guaranteed that Stephen Harper would still be prime minister, but it would have definitely improved his odds significantly. So why the hell didn't the Conservatives find it then? Or the NDP, for that matter.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, it's an interesting counterfactual to ponder, is like, would this have halted the Conservative tailspin that occurred in the final week and a half of the campaign after the barbaric cultural practices hotline was announced?
Might have actually ended up just saving Mulcair's ass, but...
Yeah, that's true. It held the Liberals to a minority, and... Maybe
even would have led to the eventual long-term collapse of the Liberal Party. But those are all various counterfactuals. The point is, there was a lot of incentive to find it throughout the years on this one, and it's weird that it didn't come up until now.
I'm very curious as to who got paid for this. Mostly because I'm wondering why... I'm assuming it would have been offered to Postmedia, and why they decided to pass on it, and if so, was it related to Elections Canada's speech restriction laws? Probably not.
I don't think so, but I don't think they're that relevant to media coverage.
No, but there is a kind of
I guess opposition research could be an in-kind contribution, maybe, but it's
I'm wondering why. Again, why now? Why time?
Yeah, that's one of the confusing bits. In the Time article, though, they do mention that several people they contacted at the West Point Drag Academy, which we should mention is a very swanky private school, here, declined to comment on it, citing loyalty to Justin Trudeau. And there was definitely a sense read in the article that there was a closing ranks around the school.
Yeah, especially since this apparently was an annual gala. Not that anyone else was wearing brownface at that particular event, but unfortunately, this has become a international news story, and gods, I love it when Canada makes the news internationally. It's always because we're doing something great.
So I saw earlier today that this was in fact the top trending story worldwide.
Yeah, fantastic. When you mentioned that you saw it was the number one story on a Dutch newspaper that you were checking, I decided to go check my Norwegian news source, and it wasn't on the front page, but it is a major story in the world news section with the photo just blasting across everything, and it doesn't paint us in the best
No,
light.
it's definitely not the Canada's back that we were promised.
No. But if we are going to be talking about what people around the world are talking about, let's segue into something that, like, was roughly that quote. People around the world are dying to do vote, followed by an appendation to that quote by Rick Mercer, conservative.
It's quite the segue there.
Yep.
That might be the best segue we've had so far.
It's a couple backflips and double lutz. All right. I've done gymnastic figure skating, and we've now arrived at another local riding controversy in Burnaby, North Seymour.
Yeah, so this is the riding that's currently held by Terry Beach. It's one of the more competitive ridings in the Lower Mainland here. And the local riding association for the Conservative Party put out on their Facebook page a picture of Rick Mercer with a famous quote of his about how people need to get out there and vote. And then at the end of it, added their own little content of vote Conservative.
Yeah.
So Rick Mercer was clearly not happy about this.
No, he was not, and contacted the National Conservative Campaign, who said, we don't know what Burnaby North Seymour is doing on their Twitter feed. Apparently, the Burnaby North Seymour Conservative Riding Association Twitter is run by their president, who is a woman who was talking about how all the G7 leaders were bullying Bolsonaro because apparently burning down the rainforest is fantastic. But
Yes, a couple
questionable tweets from that.
a couple of reporters dived into her. I think it was actually her Facebook page, not her Twitter account.
Oh no, I found her Twitter account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's
I only saw the people looking
it's
at
a
her
real
Facebook.
piece of work.
Okay. Yeah, there's some hella questionable memes and content on there. And yeah, appears she's just kind of running the Riding Association social media accounts just kind of all on her own.
Yeah, and you
It's-
can't do that because, like, misrepresenting people, it's very inappropriate. Like, it's a lie. You shouldn't do that. And the Conservative candidate, I don't know if he's disavowed this. I don't know if she's disavowed this.
Well, it would be hard to say because she hasn't done any media for over a month now.
Oh.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Also,
That's a winnable riding for the Conservatives. Like, they thought
there's
they
a
were going
vote split, there, and it's. I don't know what's going on here. When one of the local Star reporters here went to check out their campaign office in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, I think it was. Yeah, found it was deserted. Like, no one was there. Like, I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on with the Conservative campaign in Burnaby North Seymour.
Finally, for major election points, Maxime Bernier, who we all know and love, has been invited to join the National Commission's leaders' debates, adding a little bit of Beauce dairy to the already spicy mix that we are no doubt going to be treated to.
Yeah, so this was, I think, pretty widely condemned all around. I mean, the People's Party people were obviously happy about it, but by and large, I think there's a lot of pushback on why is someone who's never won an election under that party's banner, has only his own seat, doesn't poll very well, gets a couple points nationally, will be lucky to kind of hold his own riding. Why is he getting up there on the national stage?
Well, it is a troubling thing. There is some precedent for it.
Elizabeth May got on the leaders' debate before she'd ever won a seat.
Yes.
But the Green Party had actually polled a lot better, too, and had established itself more than the People's Party at that point.
Well, I think the criteria that the CRTC and the Commission were working off of was, do they have a seat in Parliament? And, like, the People's Party undoubtedly meets that standard because, yay, floor crossing, but that also is what got Elizabeth May in the 2008 leaders' debates because, of course, Blair Wilson crossed the floor immediately after being expelled from the Liberal caucus for massive campaign spending violations.
So among the people condemning this choice was Andrew Scheer, accusing the Liberals of rigging the game by setting up this commission. It should be pointed out, though, that the head of this commission is former Governor General David Johnston, who was a Harper appointment as a Governor General. So, not exactly a Liberal partisan if there ever was one.
No, especially since Johnston was the lawyer who wrote the opinion that effectively allowed prorogation in 2008/9.
Yeah, so that was one hell of a stretch, but when you think about the fact that the Conservative Party's long-term interest is keeping the People's Party out of politics. And
also Canada's long-term interest, might I add. But
that too, but I don't think that's the reason Andrew Scheer is all worked up about it.
No.
It's that they don't want to have a viable party on their flank, and they will say any ridiculous thing to try and have that be the case.
Well, from a platform for Bernier to the platforms of the parties, the announcements are coming fast and furious from our major parties. So why don't we give a quick rundown of some of the major promises that the parties have promulgated recently.
Yeah, so this was actually going to be the main segment when I was planning this out earlier in the week, with the whole thing about why the election was so boring and that nobody was paying attention. That obviously has changed, but let's go through them anyway.
Yep. Liberals.
Yeah, so on last week's episode, we talked about their announcement on the homebuyers plan, so we won't be covering that now. But they kind of made three big announcements over the past week. Boosting the Canada Child Benefit, increasing old age security by 10% for people over 75, as well as increasing Canada Pension Plan survivor benefits, and making maternity and paternity leave benefits tax-free. So a lot of pocketbook sort of stuff, more money being spent on seniors and new parents, which I guess are the key voting demographics.
Yeah, it's a very, middle-class income earning targeted.
Not so much OAS, but the rest of
No, for sure not OAS, but the Canada Child Benefit and the maternity paternity benefits. Anytime and we can talk about this a little bit with the Conservatives as well, but anytime a tax benefit comes in, it's targeted at people who are earning income that make tax and not actually, a poverty reduction measure or something like that. Moving along to the Conservatives, a transit tax credit.
Yeah, so this is actually a promise to revive the old transit tax credit, which was canceled a couple years ago by one of the Liberal budgets. The reviews of the past one were not good. Basically, nobody used it because you had to save your receipts. It was a very small amount of money. It was only for people who bought monthly passes.
Yeah, I was one of those people.
I'll admit, I didn't qualify for it then. I would now. Actually, I'm not sure if there's an income cutoff. But regardless, it wasn't very effective. And the thing about transit is to get people to use transit, the problem is not how much the fare is or whether or not you can reduce it a little bit. This goes for both the Conservatives and their transit tax credit, and for the people who want to make transits free. Mm-hmm. Spend the transit money on building better transit.
Yes.
If you actually want to get people to do it.
It's very much like a baseball diamond in a cornfield. If you build it, they will come. Cuts to the bottom income tax bracket.
So this was announced as the universal tax cut or universal tax credit initially, and there was a bunch of back and forth on. Yeah, so before we had something significant to talk about, a good chunk of this week was arguing about whether cutting the bottom tax bracket was truly universal or not. Like I said, the first couple weeks of this election were horribly boring.
Yep.
If you're
gonna took care of that real quick.
Yeah, in the worst possible way, but if you're gonna cut taxes, this is probably a fairly good way to do it because it's the least regressive way to do it. Where you're having a broad tax cut, it's still probably not as good as increasing the working income tax benefit, but it'll make everyone happy because everybody gets a little money out of it.
Yes,
except the people who don't work enough to pay taxes, but
that's really,
clearly not their target demographic.
Yeah, Andrew Scheer's big base amongst that demographic. And, of course, increasing RESP contributions by government from 20% to 30%. And this is...
Once again, middle class going after. Not much to say on that beyond.
It's probably actually pretty good policy, but I haven't seen like any kind of breakdown on it. So
Next up is they promised to cut $1.5 billion in corporate welfare. Not really super clear on the specifics of that one, what corporate welfare was going to be cut,
what they're defining as corporate welfare,
whether it's only going to be direct contributions or the kind of big regulatory corporate welfare that, say, makes dairy producers, for example, much more wealthier than they would be otherwise. Probably not that one.
Probably not that one. For some reason, both the Liberals and the Conservatives have decided to stand shoulder to shoulder in favor of dairy producers and against, of course, people wanting to buy their children milk.
Or cheese that doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
I have I have participated in cheese smuggling before. Every time I go down to the States, I'm admitting to evading customs, but it was many years ago, and I've never done it since. I buy a bunch of cheese, and I've always declared it, and I think a bunch of times I've been slightly over the limit, and the border guard is just like, I'm not dealing with
It's
cheese
not worth
duty.
the paperwork.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with cheese duty today.
And finally, for the Conservatives, they're promising a tax credit for maternity and paternity leave, so like the Liberals, but just less so.
The NDP, $1 billion, $1 billion for childcare. So a lot of spending.
Yeah, need to work with the provinces on that.
Yeah.
It's standard NDP policy, not much to really add to it. They just kind of expected.
A price cap on cell phone bills.
Also one of those like long-time NDP policies.
Yeah. And
honestly,
also, it's just like the reason I don't vote NDP. It's like, I agree with what you're trying to do. Like, I would like to pay less money on my cell phone bill. I don't think that this is a very good way of bringing it about.
Yeah. Honestly, this might be one of the few positions where the NDP is less radical than I am, where I just think we should nationalize the fucking telecoms. It's a natural...
Well, that was a surprise.
Like I said, it's one of the few areas the NDP is less radical than I am on, because it's a natural monopoly. It's one of those things where you just can't get good market competition in. Have the government build it, run it. It's probably not going to be... it can't be more expensive, and it might make the government some money or drop cell phone bills. So you hear that, NDP? And everyone else?
Incentives to buy built-in-Canada electric vehicles. Are there built-in-Canada electric vehicles?
I think there might be.
I thought that
there's the GM plant that was announced they were going to close, and
I thought there was like one that like...
Well, I think it just means assembly here. Not...
There was like a manufacturer that like left because it was so difficult to build in Canada. So maybe
GM announced they were closing one of their plants a while back.
Oh no, this is like 7 years ago. It's
okay.
They were a Quebec-based firm that...
There's a startup here in Vancouver that does electric cars too. But I mean, EV credits probably good policy. The made in Canada bit.
Oh, well.
Economic protectionism isn't great, but like it's the NDP. What do you expect?
Well, one thing that I think is actually fantastic policy, fund First Nations education at the same level as non-First Nations. What a good idea.
Why the hell aren't we doing it already?
Why indeed? Why indeed do we spend 50% of what we spend on every other Canadian on First Nations? It's almost like we're setting the system up so that people are driven into a cycle of poverty. It's almost like we are perpetuating a system of systemic racism that is the natural successor to a horrible racist colonial state. This is the bare minimum that we should be doing. In fact, it is less than the bare minimum that we should be doing. This should already be policy. We should already be spending as much on infrastructure per capita on First Nations as we do on other Canadians. But we don't because of how federalism works and because we're bad. I have nothing more to say on the subject.
The next promise the NDP is actually a raft of policies to give Quebec more autonomy over stuff like language and immigration, which
Great.
I don't think really squares well with the criticism the NDP has been making against Quebec and their recent policy moves around Bill 21. So this reads a bit like a transparent vote buying maneuver.
Well, I have always suspected that the NDP is staunchly federalist, but le NPD, perhaps a bit less so. Finally, dental coverage for households under $70,000 in income. I don't know why our mouth is the one part of our body that isn't covered by normal medicine.
I believe it was because the dentists were better organized than the doctors when we were bringing in the
National
Canada Health
Healthcare?
Act. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that
Path dependency is the answer, really.
All right. Well, that's a stupid reason, but hooray.
Yeah, it made sense. The $70,000, I guess it's a cost-saving measure, but
Yeah.
yeah, vision and dental, it doesn't make these weird bits we've left out of the Canada Health Act don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially since now we really do need to start talking about pharmacare because we used to have pretty regular surgery to correct ulcers. We don't have to do that anymore because we have an antibiotic that corrects them. But that's not covered. Finally, the Green Party and a very dumb promise to eliminate post-secondary tuition.
Yeah, so
Speaking
the evidence
of middle-class vote buying, by
Yeah.
the way.
So the evidence on this one generally supports the idea that if you eliminate tuition, it's mostly that the benefits are mostly captured by the wealthier families.
Yep.
That the people who already have all the advantages regarding getting into post-secondary institutions.
Yeah,
So-
the appropriate amount of spending or the appropriate way to direct spending if you're going to be paying for people's tuition is to pay for people who are in the lower quartile of education, particularly those who have not had a parent go to post-secondary education. Because the number one determinant on whether someone attends a post-secondary institution is whether their parent has attended a post-secondary institution.
Additionally, the Green Party actually put out their full platform earlier this week, but we're saving going through that for a comparison episode a little later on once the other parties have theirs out.
That would have been a really nice segment.
It was only that last little bit.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we had to talk about the terribleness.
Well, for something a little lighter, I guess, the provincial auditor has said that the BC legislature needs to tighten up their expense rules and oversight.
So this is one of those things that have come out of what feels like the saga that's lasted forever, but has only in fact been since last November regarding the clerk. I know.
Oh my God! I was so shocked when they fired Craig James and
Gary Lenz,
the clerk of the House and the sergeant at arms, and
not just fire them, perp walk them out.
yeah, I mean you could be classier. But as it turns out, there was quite a bit of questionable expensing going on.
Yes, and there have been claims from
Wood splitter.
yes. So this is long continuation of that. There were claims from Darryl Plecas in what is, I think, still the greatest quote in the last decade of British Columbia politics about if you don't throw up, he'll resign over the mismanagement of the legislature. We got a little bit more this week when the Auditor General, or a little bit more today actually, when the Auditor General released her report. Didn't see much vomiting though, so that promise is still being unfulfilled.
Well, I mean, I feel like we're just going to end up choking back our regurgitants until the next election when it comes to Mr. Plecas. But in general, I think that spending in BC can be a little crazy. And this isn't even improper spending. This is ministerial business. But when I worked for an MLA who was at the time Minister of Advanced Education, it was a very silly thing that happened. They took a helicopter from Victoria over to the mainland, presented an environmental award, and then took a helicopter back to Victoria the same day. And that is totally normal run-of-the-mill business in BC, but I'm just why? everything that was going to be achieved by this effort at environmentalism, whatever it was, unless it was I've discovered carbon capture storage at energy negative levels, was erased by those helicopter rides.
So in a report, the Auditor General makes a bunch of recommendations, mostly around having good policies or following the policies that they do have, finds a bunch of irregularities, spending wasn't properly approved, claims were just left sitting there and didn't get properly put up the chain of bureaucracy, which is odd for a bureaucracy because they normally love that stuff. But overall, just found, a bunch of irregularities, bad policies and everything. Made a bunch of recommendations. Seems like Lamsey's going to follow through on those.
I mean, part of it is that the BC legislature has been so reticent to spend money on itself that it has put itself in this kind of position.
Well, it's also put itself in literal danger, too, because they've been putting off seismic upgrades forever.
Oh, I'm aware. I worked in the basement, the part that gets the most crushed. And it's so, like, that one in particular is so galling because the politicians are there, like, a couple months of the year. And there is legislative staff and political staff that are there all the time. And they are in danger. And the politicians are like, oh, I can't spend money on myself. You're not. You're endangering your staff when you refuse to spend money on the seismic upgrades. Yes, it will cost like $3 billion. It's going to be outrageous, but it's also like a jewel of architecture, an important heritage building, and our seat of government.
Yeah, not only that, if you have a giant earthquake, the type that we're expecting here at some point, not having everybody in the government die because the building collapsed on them because they were all in the house at the time would be a really good thing. It's going to make coordinating the disaster response a lot better if the premier is still alive.
Yes.
And his deputies.
Yes.
And the ministers.
Yes.
And the staff.
Yes. Especially the staff. There are times when you're driving around with a politician and they're pull up somewhere and they turn to you and ask, so where am I and why am I here? But that is because the staff are incredibly important to the running of a government in advanced democracy. Like, it's an economy as big as BC's, we have a lot to do. And it would be really great if everyone in our hour of need had not been crushed by some very elegant rubble. Mm-hmm. And a giant copper dome.
But yeah, getting back to the auditor's report, this is just another one of the series of reports and revelations that are coming out regarding the whole Woodchipper Saga, I guess. Has there been a name for this yet?
I don't think so. I think the BC, I think the Speaker's office, if anything, has shown the best political management of this by failing to get this scandal named. Quick wins by comparison was nothing. This is a big fucking deal. And I have no idea what to call it. Expense gates? But there's expense gates all over the place. Yeah.
Also, we need to stop using gate as a suffix meaning.
No, I like
Actually,
it.
yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
You know what, language evolves. Forget that. I guess I'm going to keep calling it the Woodchipper Saga.
The Woodchipper Saga is pretty good. It sounds like a book that would be up for a Giller Prize at some point, or one of the Canada Reads contenders. And now the Woodchipper Saga. Speaking of sagas and intrigue and other fucking crazy things happening in the world of national intelligence, Cameron Ortiz.
Yeah, so this is one of the top people at the RCMP who's arrested earlier this week.
He's the head of the intelligence division of the RCMP, correct?
Yeah, he was director of the organization's National Intelligence Coordination Center and has access to a whole bunch of classified information.
Not only from us.
Yes.
But from the rest of the Five Eyes.
Yes, so, New Zealand's secrets could be...
all the secrets of the Kiwis. They may have been spilled out.
Admittedly, we may not have focused on the most important Five Eyes partner right there, but...
Yeah, the others, of course, being Britain, the United States, and Australia.
Yes. So potentially there's been compromise across the Five Eyes network. It's since come out that it looks like this was tied to a company actually here in BC that makes cell phones that are encrypted for criminal use. So we're still kind of waiting to see exactly what comes out of that. But yeah, this was a very high-profile arrest that's happened, and the outfall from this is still uncertain.
Yeah, Brenda Lucky's really going to need to lean heavily into her name on this one because this is going to be a massive problem. And it's one of those things that is one, a national embarrassment, speaking of a day of national embarrassments. But in terms of operational security and the actual safety of Canadians, my thought is that, like, aside from people being racist towards each other, which continues to be a ever-present problem, this will compromise our relationship with our intelligence sharing network, which could leave us vulnerable to actual violence and attack. It's catastrophic. It's so embarrassing when this kind of thing happens, and we need to figure out why this keeps happening. Part of my suspicion is that we just don't do a very good job of vetting, which, again,
one would hope the RCMP has better resources than
the Liberal Party.
Yes.
So he has been, he's a 47-year-old man from Abbotsford, and he graduated from UBC with a PhD. He had a bunch of debt. He wasn't great with money, and it was apparently $90,000 in debt in 2013. The cybersecurity focus that he had led him to become a high flyer in the Canadian securities establishment. Not actually the Canadian securities establishment, but
yes.
the RCMP securities branch.
Subdivision branch. Yeah, actually, it's quite interesting that he's risen really high for someone who's not actually in the RCMP. Was a civilian employee, and had access to a bunch of operational data as well. So it's a very big potential breach.
So he has come to face 7 charges, 2 criminal code and 5 from the SOIA, which is the Security of Information Act. He faces from the criminal code breach of trust and unauthorized access of a computer, which is a part of the criminal code I love. And then under Securities of Information Act, basically the charges that you would expect, multiple counts under Section 14, going back as far as 2015. So it's not like this is a problem that is new. It's, however, slightly heartening that the Section 22 charge under the SOIA was related to preparing to do something. So hopefully this was caught before the greatest amount of damage was done. We unfortunately don't know the rest of the details, seeing as how this podcast doesn't have a investigative reporting arm, but it is...
No, we don't have the patron money yet. However, if you'd like to support,
visit us at patreon.com/politicoast.
Yes, that's going to be a very high-level tier.
Yeah.
Before we launch that, but every little bit helps.
Chip in $7,000, one for each of the charges faced by Mr. Ortiz.
A BC court has ruled that the province needs to revisit the environmental assessment that it granted the Trans Mountain Pipeline project, specifically because the basis for that approval was the National Energy Board granting approval, and that got overturned in a different court case. It's no longer valid to be used for this, and the BC government has to go back and reassess based on the new National Energy Board findings. They did also stress that because pipelines are a national jurisdiction, they can't actually deny it. So they have to thread this, revisit it, but you can't actually substantively block the project when you do so.
Great. What a non-story. Like, it's fantastic because the court has ordered the province to do the thing it did, but again.
Yes.
I'm sure Michelle Mongell, David Eby, and John Horgan will be delighted that they basically have to approve this pipeline.
Again.
Well, it was Christy Clark who did it beforehand. Like, it was the twinned structure that allowed it to go through the first time. And it's this repetition that the NDP is going to have to confront, and unfortunately probably put them in a very uncomfortable position. Only time will tell. Although,
no, David Eby had to approve some stuff early in his term, too.
He had to approve some permitting related to it, right. But he got in trouble because he said that he had to follow the law as Attorney General, and that was apparently impolitic. Good God, what a week. Can we go? This is terrible. This has been a bad news week.
It really has.
And, of course, by go, I mean head over to the Canby Report, which we are recording next in this very room. So check us out over there, always on the Canby Report feed. Scott is going to be guesting, just as I have been guesting here on Politicoast this week, as Ian is still on parental leave. And we are very excited about the very interesting goings-on as Council ramps up for the fall.
Yeah, so do check that out. If people want to find you or the Canby Report on social media, or else where would they check?
At Canby Report, and you can find me at Naylor4X, and as always, at the Sarah Lehman Law Group, home of Spirits of the Law, which will be recording a new episode next week.
And that has been Politicos. Find links to everything we talked about at politicos.ca. If you're a first-time listener, make sure to subscribe and let us know what you think. Support the show and get access to our exclusive Slack channel at patreon.com/politicos. And if you have ideas for the show, feel free to send to us. Our intro music credit is Beautiful British Columbia by Saoirse Plotnikoff. Thanks for listening.